Hey, it's Christina. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to The Squeeze.
Stress is completely normal. It's a normal physiological system.
The guest on the show today is Dr. Carlos Davidovich. Carlos was originally trained as a medical doctor in Argentina, and he now works in Europe, US, and Canada as an executive coach with organizational leaders and management teams applying neuroscience and neuromanagement, and he's been doing that for the last 20 years. Carlos is a professor of neuromanagement in the MBA program at the University of New York in Prague, Czech Republic. He's also a guest lecturer for the Masters in Leadership program at the Lang School of Business and Economics at the University of Guelph in Canada. And he is also a thought leader with the Institute of Coaching at McLean Hospital, which is a Harvard Medical School affiliate. I first came across Carlos's work from his 2022 TEDx conference at the University of New York in Prague, speaking on the topic of five brain leadership. Carlos is also the author of Five Brain Leadership: How Neuroscience Can Help You Master Your Instincts and Build Better Teams. He currently resides in Madrid, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. It was fabulous. And just a quick housekeeping note here. The audio in this episode is, well, it's not great, and I apologize for that. Sometimes it's pretty challenging trying to sync up Zoom with guests that are halfway around the world. What can I say? Technology. Please listen beyond the less than perfect audio quality for the gems from our conversation. Okay, welcome to the show, Carlos. Thanks for being with us today.
Really a pleasure being with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, you're so welcome. Okay, Carlos, I'm going to start by quoting something that you said at the end of your 2022 TEDx talk. You finish your talk by saying that we are, quote, emotional beings with a brand new rational software that we need to learn to trust, end quote. This strongly aligns with something I've believed and shared with clients for years, but I talk about it in a slightly different way. I say that in spite of our strongly held desire to be and to appear rational, because that is, of course, what is privileged in our culture here in the West for many reasons, it is actually emotions that are driving the bus. That's how I describe it. I've also read that something like 80% of our impulses on any given day are originating from our emotions. And I know that you also talk about the connection between emotions and motivation. So I'm not imagining disagreement on that. Where this gets interesting, at least for me anyways, is in conflict. So I myself have been guilty of thinking I'm the rational one in an argument with my spouse when I'm anything but. And it's pretty shocking for me to discover after the fact just how easily I fell for the illusion of my own rationality. And I think what makes it even worse sometimes for me personally is that because I read and research so much about relationships, I can stand there and quote something in a very calm voice. But on the inside, I'm undoubtedly expending all kinds of energy trying to appear rational. And I'm pretty sure that if I didn't have some kind of like really well-trained governor on my emotions, I would yell a lot more. So here's here's my question. I heard you explaining on another podcast about how to manage those reptilian brain reactions. And that's probably not even said correctly, but I need to ask you to break it out for me and for my listeners. How can we get in front of what feels like a split second reaction?
So it's so important what you're saying, Christina, because the word that comes to my mind, the first word that comes to my mind is self-awareness. That is quite
Self-worth,
difficult, don't get me wrong. Self-awareness. I mean, to be aware
self-awareness,
of
self-awareness.
when
Yes.
sorry for my Spanish. The self-awareness of knowing you said something, you gave such a concrete example. I think I'm very rational with my spouse, but in the end, I'm not. So what happened is that your reptilian brain, let's say the instinctual part of you, is hijacking, the rational brain and knows perfectly how to use it. And this is the key, I will say, core of conflictive conversation or confrontational conversation. The point is, remember, the reptilian brain reacts, or that survival state or mode, that is activated in 1/5 of a second. So it's almost impossible to block it and to say, no, I will not react like that unless you train yourself. So what I many times I tell you, coaching people that have that tendency, I mean, to be very aggressive or to react too fast. We do a specific program, let's say, in my coaching practice, and I said, listen, I'm totally aware myself that you cannot stop. So let's do the step one. The step one is at the moment that you realize that you were being aggressive or let's not in the correct way, apologize right away. So the
Mm.
first step is say sorry. Even though you can say, I was not able to help it, sorry, but say it because people
So
will understand.
so right when you're in
And
when as soon as you realize it, you say, I'm sorry.
but do it fast because most of them, what happened, I mean, this is through a coaching process, most of them, because the reptilian brain reacts in this way, they want to stay in that position. But they start finding out that the consequences in the relationship with people are negative. So that's why they are bringing this to the coaching meeting. And I say, okay, listen, let's go step by step. So I will not say something nonsense, something like, oh, you need to control yourself now, because I know it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. So please, once happening that you really reacted in that way, please ask, say sorry, and people will start understanding what's going on. Second step, people that have this tendency to be, I don't want to use only the word aggressive, impulsive. Impulsive will be maybe a better word. They need to learn a new pattern of behavior. It's a learning curve. This is not about me telling them, hey, that was too much, or maybe you need to control. No, no, it doesn't work. Why? Because they already have a pattern in their brain. The pattern is I just respond whatever comes to my mind without thinking. That's what we say. Normally we say you speak before you think. You know,
Mhm.
it's quite real, because blah, blah, blah is the reptilian brain before you can bring the information here to really think properly.
Right.
So step number one is say sorry. I mean, what happened? Then people will say, okay, at least you realize that was not correct. Step number two, I tell you what I do. This is my technique. It's simple.
Hmm.
Identify a person in your team. Normally, I work with people in companies and organizations, and that somebody that you really trust. That person will become your controller. So from now on, you will make a deal with this. At the moment that everybody's in the meeting, whatever, so this person can see you, that will be the controller. And at the end of the meeting, will tell you that was too much. This you should have stopped here. Why? Because that person is to learn a new pattern of behavior.
Mm. Mm.
Tell me if I'm explaining myself properly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Am I? Okay, so what I mean is, eh, eh, let's not ask for something real. This is not to tell people you don't have to do that because it doesn't work. Because they don't get it.
Yes.
So when somebody is very impulsive, let's use that, keep using that word, they need to learn what impulsivity means. And also they need to learn the gap between the intent and
Yeah.
the impact.
Yeah.
But that is a learning curve.
Yeah.
And
Let
then
me,
it's fantastic. It's fantastic how they start understanding. Wow, I didn't realize that when I say this or that, that is taken in such a negative way.
right, right. Let me unpack this a little bit. I want to make sure I'm tracking. So, the first thing, and I mean, I've worked with this pattern in myself and my clients for decades, and so it's always about how to get out in front of that initial kind of reactivity. And you're saying in 1/5 of a second, yeah, that tracks. So apologizing as the second I notice, I'm standing there in the kitchen with that calm voice quoting something that is, let's say BS, I'm actually quite upset, immediately say, I'm sorry. The next piece you talked about was that like it's really crucial for us to learn that new pattern. And I love the idea of inviting like a colleague or like an ally almost to be, as you call it, the
Yeah,
controller. What I was curious about, you said that you would get with that person, say after the meeting, and they'd give you a little bit of a synopsis, like an observer would. Is it ever useful, Carlos, for that person to maybe do a signal like in the meeting? Okay, and you're
that,
pointing,
that,
you're
that
pointing,
that's
you're excited.
so that's the second step. The first step, not during the meeting, because
Okay.
that person will become more aggressive even. So the second step, when the system is already in place, my recommendation is establish some kind of signal. And
Okay.
that person will do a signal and you know that you need to stop. You
Right.
know that is too much. So they learn a new pattern of the way of talking and communicating. And it works. I tell you it works because and they say, I never thought that when I
Yeah.
was saying this and this and this was taken so negative.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, I was aware of the reaction, but I didn't know why.
Right. It's almost, Carlos, it almost sounds a little bit like cognitive behavioral therapy, a little bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
okay,
sort of.
kind of.
You're borrowing a structure. Oh, I mean, it definitely sounds effective. What I'm also want to just draw attention to is because I'm fascinated with this is intention and impact. Because, so many clients that I work with are trying to change patterns. But if the intention and the impact are, far apart, in other words, my intention is to, I'm going to give a really generic one, lose weight, but I'm eating this cake. The impact isn't always felt immediately. And so it's tough for people to understand that even though I have the best of intentions in this moment, my actions, the negative consequences will not be felt necessarily for a while. So with somebody
Yes.
who's an aggressive or I can't remember the word you use, not aggressive, passionate, directive,
Impulsive, impulsive,
impulsive. So
impulsive.
somebody who's an impulsive leader, oftentimes they are just cut off from the feedback of their action, right? They're not getting
Exactly.
feedback. They don't know the impact
Exactly.
of their action. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if I notice, let's just say, so I love your framing. That's great. There's some structure, there's some practicality. So for anyone listening, I think it's really key that you find a trusted partner that is somebody who can help you repattern that way of being. So Carlos, when I notice if I'm just in a situation where I'm in I don't know, a meeting or something with somebody else, a colleague who I notice is starting to get triggered and coming from that reptilian reaction, we don't have any agreed upon, relationship or agreement or anything like that. Is there anything I can do or say that helps them step out or see beyond when they're in it?
Depends the relationship you have with that person
Yeah. Yeah.
and the way that you talk. If you sounds like you're patronizing, you're out of the game.
Bingo. Yeah.
So it has to be something, first of all, what I'm saying depends on the relationship because it has to be a trustful relation. That person needs to trust you.
Mhm.
If not, will react even more in a negative way.
Right.
If understands and trusts you and you can say it in a calm way, remember the reptilian brain is contagious. I mean, when activates one, will activate the other one. So if
Right.
you can keep in a calm way, I say, listen, or what is the name? Tom, listen, in this moment, the way you're talking to me, I mean, I really don't feel good. Third condition, never talk about them. Talk about the impact on you.
Mm, that's
Then they can,
that's a good one.
then,
That's a good one. Now, I'm going to stop you. So I want to just reinforce that. Don't talk about them. Talk about the impact. So you're kind of depersonalizing it. Can you tell me? I mean, I think I understand why, but tell me why.
no, you are avoiding the confrontation.
Right.
So I'm not saying to that person you did it wrongly. I'm not judging that
Right.
person.
Right.
I'm saying this is the impact on me, is the way I receive it.
Right.
So
Right.
when the relationship is good, the other person will say, sorry, I mean, that was not my intent, for sure, my intention. But if you start judging, that is the way to never break the pattern.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. It
Because
sounds like
the person
you're,
will say, yeah, the person will say, yeah, what were you telling me that you're right, I'm wrong. So the fight will stay.
yeah. 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 Then it
The
becomes
fighting mode.
positional. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about, because I was going to bring that up as well about the reptilian brain being contagious. I thought that was a great way to say it. I also observe that. That's my experience. I have come up with my own term. I call it a trigger jamboree. When one person is triggered, it's very difficult for the other person not to be. I'm curious though. So, Carlos, in terms of like from a brain perspective, like what's going on there? Like I was kind of racking my brain. Is it like mirror neurons or something? Like I'm triggering and then the other person somehow finds like what's happening? Why is the other person triggering more likely when I'm in my reptilian brain?
First of all, again, this is survival reaction. And like you mentioned at the beginning, we mainly trust the reptilian brain because we know that was the reason to the civilization is still alive. It's about survival. Therefore, in my brain, when somebody's reptilian brain is talking to me, my reptilian brain will react. And that will deactivate my rational brain.
Mm,
When the reptilian brain is activated, the rational brain needs to be deactivated because it's too slow
right,
to react.
right.
And so mirror neurons, they work differently. The mirror neuron system is about empathy. The,
Ah,
the
okay.
mirror neuron system is, and I will tell you, I'm sure you know, the mirror neural system creates a situation that whatever you do as an action
Mm,
for my brain is me doing the same action.
mhm. Right,
That is the empathetic thing. So I can
right.
understand what happened to you because in my brain is me doing it.
Right. Right. That's when my
Make
husband and
sense?
I are sitting on the couch watching a movie and I look over and we're sitting exactly the same way.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So more
Exactly.
empathetic in nature, the mirror neurons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
Mirror
Love it.
neurons is what I would say one of the key components of empathy.
Right. Right. I also appreciate your distinction that when the reptilian brain is active, the rational part of us
No,
cannot be. Yeah. And they're operating at very different speeds, clearly, because as you describe, reptilian is survival. So we kind of want that one to go really fast, I often think. Yeah.
I
Okay.
want to share two things, if you let
Yeah.
me. First of all, 100% of the information that comes to us through our senses, right, will impact first the reptilian brain. Oh, so will impact
Mm,
I mean,
right.
the whole brain, but there is a slight time difference. First reptilian, there is a delay, emotional, there is a relay, irrational part. The explanation is simple. It's about survival. So if it's something that really put me under threat, I need to react with those things. So, boom.
Right. Yeah.
And that also is the reason of the famous saying worldwide, count until 10 before you react.
Right.
because counting until 10 means let the information reach your rational brain.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when you ask people, I work a lot in workshop on this, and always, and we talk about the reptilian brain, blah, 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 and always I do a round. I say, tell me what is your technique when you are really mad, when you are stressed, you're not, you're 100% of the techniques is about buying time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk with a friend. I go for a walk. I
Yeah.
go for a coffee. Everything is about buying time.
Yeah.
Is calm down. And the funny part is when we see somebody with a retinal vein activated, what we say, calm down and think.
That doesn't
It's
work so well.
ridiculous. No,
Yeah, so if you're listening and someone's upset, don't say calm down. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Since
yeah,
let's talk later, go for a walk, and we
yeah.
will connect later.
Yeah, we have a thing. I don't know if it's in your experience as well, Carlos, but for kids, we always say when they're upset, take a time out. And so I use that with adults, and I say take a time out.
Absolutely,
Go
absolutely.
outside. I always say there's never a situation where you can't say I have to go and use the bathroom. Although I have since worked with ER docs, and that is actually not the case. So it's about finding that moment when you can actually just step back and disconnect for a moment, let your brains sort of balance and your rational catch up. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the heart brain for a moment.
Okay,
I really appreciate how you pull on language to point to the possibility that the heart is not just a pump. I think that's really cool. So that it potentially plays a role in memories and perhaps more. So in English, you point out that we say that we know something quote unquote by heart. This propelled me to do a little bit of light Googling, and I came across a journal article. It was from the National Library of Medicine, 2019. It explored the role of the heart as a key moderator of pain, and that pain perception is modulated by neural pathways and methods targeting the heart. So I'll just had a little giggle because I thought, well, it looks like all those love songs about broken hearts have actually gotten it right. But I'm digressing for a second. Firstly, isn't the number of neurons in the heart like barely a fraction of what exists in the brain? Like I think 40,000 to something like 100 billion.
exactly, exactly.
But so I've got kind of two questions for you. First of all, help me understand how the heart gets to be included in the category of brains. Firstly, obviously there's neurons there, but like what qualifies something in your book to be called a brain? And then secondly, can you explain the role of neurons in the heart and how understanding this aspect of our biology might offer interesting insights, particularly in terms of emotional intelligence and decision making? So, like how a leader can lead from the heart. So, there was a lot there. So, first of all, how does the heart get labeled a brain? And secondly, how does a leader lead from the heart? Help us understand that.
Okay, there are many things to analyze
Lots to
here,
unpack there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
I get it.
unpack.
Take your time.
Exactly. First of all, I mean, when somebody is asking me, okay, why you call the near so few neurons in the heart and brain? Well, first, I was not the one. I mean, the guy who
Yeah.
discovered called the I was a French guy called the Petit brain, the Petit cerebral in French. I don't remember now how it is. But the point is, what is the definition of brain? That's my always is my response. Tell
Yeah.
me what is the definition of brain?
Yeah.
The brain is neurons and is a system of support called glia here. And so that's supporting network. And neurons, those are in the heart, even though it's 40,000.
Yeah.
So, and then always I say, why is not a brain? So
Yes.
we call brain this one that is super powerful, of course. But if we define brain, brain is just that, is certain type of cells and supported by a specific system of cells. Those two things, you have it here, up here, you have it
Right.
in the heart, and you have it
In the gut as well.
in the gut as well. The point is, and it's true, everything's interconnected. So it's intertwined. I mean,
Yeah.
today we cannot differentiate one from the other. Second question that you brought up is about what means to lead from the heart.
Hmm.
I have two type of answers. One from my heart, and
I want to hear the heart one first.
and the other one from my head. So, because there are two types of audience, of people listening.
Yeah.
When you tell certain type of executive or executive people in work at work, doesn't matter if it's executive or not, and you say to lead by the heart sounds too touchy feely,
Yep.
and then they will react. So today, or not today, no, for many years we talk about servant leadership.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Servant
you heard
leadership.
about it.
Yeah.
Servant leadership is to lead from the heart, and that, in a practical way, is a compassionate leadership. So is leading through understanding others first, considering their situation and leveraging their characteristics to become more productive. So it's about the others. It's about others. It's not about me. This is a servant leadership, you know? And this is what I connected with leading from the heart.
Right.
That's why I say, I mean, depends who
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
listening will be the speech. The truth is that the another thing I don't remember. I don't think I said it. No, I didn't see it. Said it in the TED talk. There is a concrete study, research that shows that people that go through any kind of heart intervention or heart attack or heart disease, whatever, put the name, after the episode, the incidence of psychological issues is higher. So there is a connection between our psychological state and the heart. That is a fact.
Hmm.
And that is a fact. That's, I mean, it's out of
Hmm.
discussion.
Yeah.
Still, there is a lot of, I mean, way to go to understand exactly what that means. I like this is because I'm talking to you, but I always like to bring the whole all story of medicine. I mean, at the
Hmm.
beginning of medicine, those father of medicine, let's call it that way, they thought that the essence of the human being was in the heart, not in the brain. And of course, I mean, you say, oh, yeah, because okay, they didn't know. It's true. I mean, they didn't have the information. But now we are doing a circle. Now we understand that maybe, I don't want to derail the conversation, but maybe they were not so wrong
Yeah.
on
Maybe
what
they
that
got it
was.
right.
Maybe they got it right. If you don't mind, can I tell you another anecdote? If it's okay with
Please.
you.
It's okay with me, Carlos. Go for it.
I don't know if you know Davidson. Davidson is a researcher, as an amazing medical doctor from Wisconsin, by the way, or used to be in Wisconsin. I don't know. And he was the one who studied all the monks that were working with the Dalai Lama to see how the brain works regarding meditation and all this.
Hmm.
If you know this, the anecdote, no, I don't know if you know.
I
So,
don't.
so the Dalai Lama, that was few years ago, the Dalai Lama brought all the monks that are living with him, whatever, to say, okay, but the Dalai Lama is a fanatic of neuroscience,
Hmm.
the current
Hmm.
Dalai
Hmm.
Lama. And he brought them to Richard Davidson to say, listen, study them. So, okay. And Davidson said, well, we need to explain to them what we're going to do. Then Davidson said, because we want to know what was the impact of so many years of meditation, I'm going to study your brain. So we go to MRI, blah, blah, blah. And all the monks started laughing and giggling. And
Sorry, the
David,
monks did what, Carlos?
start laughing or
Yeah.
giggling. I was like laughing and saying,
Yeah.
"What are you talking about?" So Davison then says, "Okay, maybe I said something wrong." And then he asked the Dalai Lama, "What was wrong what I said?" And the Dalai Lama said, "No, you said that to know what happened with them, you're going to study the brain." And they say, "No, you need to study their heart."
Huh.
That's what they were expecting, not to study the brain.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is an anecdote, but I love it, by the way.
Yeah.
Going back to your question, what means leading from the heart is is organizing the system differently,
Yeah.
is prioritizing different things in meanwhile you are leading. So if you lead, normally we lead through objectives, goals, purpose, that is completely correct, yeah? But how you do it, that makes the whole difference. Are you giving orders all the time, or you are asking them to propose? Are you involving them? Are you engaging them? Because that is a completely different process
Right.
that takes you different results regarding productivity, regarding efficiency, and all this stuff. What I'm trying to say is there are a lot of research out there as well showing that, and let's keep using the same sentence, leading from the heart is a lot more powerful than leading from the rational brain.
Yeah.
Well, I would say effective. I would not use the word powerful. Effective.
Effective. I would agree with that. Hey, you're listening to The Squeeze. And if you like what you're hearing, there's a whole world of citrus coaching to discover. We've got an online leadership program. It's called Citrus U, and it features those 3 key tools you need to be a better leader, well, to be a better human. We also have a number of mini learning bundles that you can get into, and there's plenty more. If you're interested, you can follow us on Instagram or check out our website at www.citruscoaching.com. And the show resumes now. And I would also think powerful too, a different type of power though.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because what you're saying is triggering so many other areas that I'm currently researching and looking into. So I'm gonna kind of follow the bouncing ball of energy here, because one of the pieces that I'm really looking deeply into right now is overwhelm. So I'm actually doing a bunch of research into the large organizational patterns that exacerbate leadership overwhelm right now. So specifically what I'm doing, Carlos, is I'm looking at the implicit culture. And so obviously, the explicit culture in most of the organizations that I work with are talking about employee well-being. They offer mindfulness, lots of workshops, lots of coaching. So the explicit culture is saying that, but the implicit culture, the one that nobody talks about but everybody knows, is that the expectation is that the leaders that really drive themselves relentlessly will be successful. And I see it all over the place. Obviously, well, let me just give context. So I work a lot in healthcare. I work in local government, both of which are tremendously susceptible to change. So, yeah. So I continually have clients that show up on my doorstep and they are exhausted. They're ready to quit or go on a leave. And so it's kind of ugly inside these organizations. And I know that I know a lot of the usual kind of tools and strategies and things like that for supporting leaders. But what you're talking about is exactly what I've observed, which is that it seems that when the pressure mounts, and I think the pressure is systemic, frankly, when the pressure mounts, leaders tend to go into more directive, as you were describing in your
Absolutely.
examples. And what I find is that the resistance is to slowing down, even though slowing down seems to be the only thing that would make a difference. So you've made a lovely distinction in some of your podcast episodes that I listen to around stress and de-stress, or distress, I
Mhm.
should say.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
stress is just a thing. It's like, it can be a very positive thing, but that the
it is.
narrative that we hold about our stress can actually make us in distress and create a lot of harmful effects. So let's talk about, like, so for leaders in those situations, in those churning kind of organizational dynamics, they're trying really hard to regain their mental health. First of all, when a leader is in overwhelm, so I'm going to get you to go back a little bit to the brain science a bit. So what's going on in our brains in overwhelm? And then what can we do about that? I know those are giant questions, but let's just see where they go. So what's going on in our brain, Carlos, when we're overwhelmed? I think
Oh
we're
my
going
God.
back to the reptilian brain. That's my hunch.
Definitely yes. And we activate something that is the sympathetic system, the
Right,
sympathetic
right.
system.
Yeah.
And that is just to be on guard, on duty. I mean, you need to be prepared for that. When I have one workshop that is from overwhelmed to flourishing. And my first question in the workshop is, how do we define being overwhelmed? What is the definition? And through many uh, workshops, the best definition I found is the feeling of being out of control.
It's good.
Uh, because that, this is the definition. And then we have all the physiological and psychological impacts
Right.
that the list is endless about how people react physically or mentally
Hmm.
to the state of being overwhelmed. But in the end, everything is around having this perception of lack of control.
Right.
Makes sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Lack of
So
control is a good description.
then if we, then all the impact in our body is about the hyper activation of the stress normal physiological response.
Hmm.
So I mean, you're totally right. I mean, stress is normal. Stress is completely normal. It's a normal physiological system
Right.
that allows us to get up in the morning, blah blah blah, to walk and to cross the street. When that system is overactivated, that is called distress, then we have a problem and we can end, in a burnout syndrome. So to feel overwhelmed creates a situation where I start not only feeling out of control, I I go numb, I cannot react, I cannot respond. So in that moment, I'm really in danger in many senses, psychologically or physically. Depends on the situation. What is the antidote? I mean, how to neutralize this stuff? First of all, understanding the system. System, I mean the body and my mind.
Hmm.
What I try to transmit is how to get back to the feeling of control. And there are some concrete tips. Sorry, I don't want to derail to go south because your question was about what happened when we are overwhelmed, and I'm moving to what to do when we are
No,
overwhelmed.
no, it's a natural progression. I'm following you, and I think it's useful. Keep going.
Okay, and what I present is to understand very simple concepts. Number one, let's stop talking about time management because that is absolutely the wrong target. And when we are aiming the wrong target, there's no solution.
Yeah.
Nobody, absolutely nobody on earth can manage time. That is absolutely an oxymoron, time
Hmm.
management. What the body does naturally, and is called technically allostasis, is managing energy. That's what we do.
Right.
And that's what we do unconsciously. We
Right.
say, I feel good, I will do more. I
Right.
feel tired, I stop doing, I rest. This is energy management,
Is
not
that like body budgeting from the brain's perspective?
exactly. It's
Okay.
called allostasis or
Yeah.
body budgeting. It's exactly the same. So let's aim the right target. The right target is energy management.
Right.
Then let's look for whatever technique will help me to manage my energy or to gain more energy or to avoid draining energy. But this is the target. And in that moment, it will become more effective. And I have, a list of 7 different steps. I will not time to go through all of them. But I will
I'll
just
put your
bring,
contact info. People can reach out to you after the show.
well, absolutely. Or we can do another podcast if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
So, so the one I want to highlight first is anxiety, because anxiety is like a, it's, lately sort of normal in our society. Everybody feels anxious in
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
And anxiety has a very, very, it's polyfacetic, let's say, a different way of manifest itself or be present in our life. And this is a concept that not too many people know, and I like to share. Anxiety has one characteristic. Anxiety cannot live in our head or our body when we are focusing on the present time.
Hmm.
Anxiety only can be present when I think in a negative way about the past or in a negative way about the future.
Right.
And of course, you know that. But it's important to recall this because there are so many techniques today that we can use to keep ourselves in the here and now.
Yeah.
That is the way to close the door for anxiety. This is not magic. This is how the brain works.
No. Yeah. It's Carlos, it's almost like I feel like people are always just searching for the magic bullet. And it's kind of like even just something like deep breathing and counting to 10. Like these things are tried and true. They're ancient, they work, but it's like our culture is just pushing for the shiny thing, that's going to
For sure.
somehow take us, like anxiety is incredibly high levels in our culture today. It's become ubiquitous, and there's just a way that yeah, I completely align with what you're saying. It can't exist in the present moment. Fully aligned with that. Back to what you were just saying about energy management versus time management. Love it. It's a great reframe. What if I do my little sort of self assessment around my energy and I realize I've got none at any point in the day? Do I quit? What do I do? I mean, I love the idea of identifying, I call it like your biological power hour, like, and you've pointed out those 2 hours after lunch are deadly. And
Yeah.
you and I, as facilitators, I know that's the hardest time of we really work for our money at that time. But like in all sincerity, when I'm dealing with a really burned out leader, and I say, let's reframe and look at energy management, and they just go, like, I got none. I mean, like, what do we do with that?
First of all, that is a saying that is not realistic. So that is not true. The moment you have non-energy, you're not alive anymore. So let's explain.
Okay, so maybe they were a bit dramatic, but keep going.
Exactly, exactly. So then, when I ask people this, when is the moment during the day that you feel with more energy?
Mm,
It's in the morning, it's in the evening, because all of us, we have a different time. No, different. There is a peak of energy for all of us that is divided, some of them in the morning, some of them in the afternoon or
mhm.
evening. We need to understand the pattern of our circadian rhythm. It's a
Right.
circadian rhythm. Why? To leverage that pattern. That's step number one. And for instance, personally, I am an evening guy. So in the evening, I boom, and then I do things faster, less mistakes. In the morning, I can do it because my life was in the morning like everyone else, and in schools and everything. But I know that if I need to do something really demanding, I do it in the evening, always.
Right. Right.
Number one. Another thing that we need to know during the day. we have two different cycles. Normal cycle that normally we break because we don't know they exist. We don't follow.
Yeah.
One is the one I just told you, and you already know because you say, okay, after lunch, try not to be so demanding with you after lunch. Okay,
Hmm.
we cannot take a nap the night before, but at least do something lighter after
Hmm.
lunch, let's say. But the other one is the ultradian rhythm that
Hmm.
people don't know about this. And the body, the brain, say every, I would say between 90 and 120 minutes, the brain will shut off the system for 15 minutes. We like it or not, we want it or not.
Right.
And if we don't allow the brain to do that, the brain needs to do two works because in that moment where we're doing nothing, those 15 minutes, the brain is working like crazy in something that is essential. It's organizing the files.
Right. It's a good metaphor.
Mhm. Exactly. The
Yeah.
brain needs to organize what was happening during the
Right.
active time.
Right.
And that's what the brain does. We don't let the brain to do it. We we are over using the system, let's say, and the engine cannot last for too long.
Right.
And that creates that feeling of being all the time tired.
Mm. Mm. That makes a lot of sense.
But
So,
and then my recommendation, just to finish the
yeah,
idea,
yeah.
is I give a very concrete technique. I mean, put in your cell phone. I mean, 100 minutes. 100 minutes would be an alarm. Exactly.
Or on your, I'm holding up my smartwatch because that
Yeah,
thing
smartwatch. Yeah, yeah.
beeps me
The
every
same.
50 minutes.
Okay, okay. And let's beat you. I mean, that will beep every, I don't know, 90 minutes, 100 minutes.
Yeah.
In that moment, stop whatever you're doing and change activity for 15 minutes. Do something lighter. When you start following in a conscious way that pattern, the brain starts gaining energy more and more and more. And you will see that in just in 1 or 2 weeks. It's
Hmm.
very concrete, the impact
Hmm.
that has in our level of energy. So just what I'm saying is just following what normally happens that we don't
Right.
respect normally.
Right. Right, which most people probably don't even know. So I want to just check that out. So, because that's a super crucial little what the kids call life hacks today, is so every 90 to 120 minutes, set your phone or set your watch to beep you, and
Exactly.
then
Yeah,
get up
yeah.
and do something for 15 minutes that's lighter. Here's my question, because you know what people are going to do in those 15 minutes. They're going to go and they're going to pick this thing up. I'm holding my phone up. So scrolling on social media, does that constitute something lighter?
If it's not something traumatic or aggressive, yes. What I mean
Okay.
is, so some people go to TikTok, I mean, just to see, to watch stupid things or whatever,
Cat
because
video.
it doesn't videos or whatever, it doesn't
Okay.
require much energy.
Okay.
Whatever will distract you, or just go for a walk, you know what I mean? Or go for a coffee, or organize your desk, or organize your computer, whatever will not demand too
Yeah.
much energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I am gonna make that. I'm gonna set that intention for myself, Carlos, because I sit at a desk. I know lots of people listening sit at desks, and it is so easy to get caught up in the work. So I'm committed. You can hold me accountable to that. Okay. I'm going to change gears a little bit here because I think anybody who's watched your TED talk, and I think probably people listening will go and check that out, and I think you should. You talk about bully bosses, and so I think that's kind of like, I don't know if you know this, Carlos, but it's kind of become your thing out there in social
Yeah.
media land. So it's obviously a core piece of your focus and expertise. So listeners who are new to your work, though, they don't know about it, and yet may have undoubtedly suffered under a bully boss. I found it, for me personally, I found it extremely helpful to hear that you saying that you enjoy working with bully bosses because these are clients that you can take any kind of feedback that you want to dish out. That high level of directness and challenge is actually something that they respect. I found this with some of the very, very senior clients that I work with, that it's always kind of, I'm a bit shocked actually at what I get away with. And for them, it's just like, hey, this is just the norm. Clearly, this type of personality is not the majority in organizational life, thank God. And these type of bosses can be, as you've said in another podcast I listened to, extremely hard on their direct reports. They're getting the results, so the company loves them, the organization loves them. But for
Yeah.
anyone that's listening, and I've worked with a lot of people who have had these bosses. So if anybody is listening and has had or has a current situation with a bully boss, sometimes I think it can be useful for us to understand a little bit about what's going on for them. And I know it's a little bit of duplication of what we talked about at the beginning, but I guess what I would ask you, Carlos, is if you were talking to somebody who is working for a bully boss, so we're not talking to the bully boss, what could you tell them that would help them feel maybe a little less victimized, maybe a bit more empowered, and maybe even something that they could do differently to feel a
Yeah.
little bit better?
Wow. Again, okay. In the next 2 hours, I will explain them.
You have exactly 10 minutes. I know,
Exactly.
I like the big questions because it means you
I
have to
love
come
it.
back
I
again.
love it. Exactly. We love it. So the point is, let's differentiate how that person is being impacted by that bully boss. Because what I mean is, sometimes when you see that the person is not able to manage the situation, the best is to leave the position, the organization. I mean, we need to understand when the impact of a bully boss is too much, let's say,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and not to expect that people will be able really to control that situation. It's not easy. For those that you see that they really are eager to learn what to do, the first recommendation I give is counterintuitive, because what the bully boss respects is when they are pushed back, when somebody will be determined and firm in their position.
hmm,
That's what the bully boss will really respect. Bully bosses, male or female, doesn't matter. No gender related. Okay, and they normally they are female. I mean, alpha females or alpha males in
hmm,
general.
hmm.
And those kind of mindset, they mainly respect alpha male or alpha female. So that's what somebody that will they feel they're at the same level.
Right.
But we are talking about employees. And so this is the boss. There's a hierarchy there. Exactly. There is a difference. I'm not saying that you will play at the same level, but you can. My always I work in a coaching setting. I work in what is called self-respect. So I'm not saying you will fight this person because it's quite aggressive. It's
Hmm.
true. But what people really understand and they want to do is to keep a self to respect themselves. Then the way to respect yourself is building the right limits or boundaries. This is about boundaries. And we work a lot on how to do it and when to do it. Because of course, at the beginning, the bully boss will become even more aggressive
Yeah,
because this is new.
yeah.
But I tell you, because this is works mathematically. The second time or third time that the person say this is the limit, and say here, I'm no, I mean I don't let you cross this line. Bully balls are very respectful of that. Believe it or not. This is not to create people that will behave like bully balls.
Right,
No.
right.
This is to create, to help people, support people to respect themselves. One of the first step, let's say, because also there are steps on this, is At the moment you feel the aggression or the situation is becoming complicated because of the style of your boss, in a very nice way, say, okay, this is again, talk about you. This is not impacting well on me. Let's talk another moment. Now we cannot. And it sounds people say, I cannot do that. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you can. And so this is not about telling you are being aggressive because those people will not listen that. It's about telling I don't feel okay in this situation and this is a limit. So I'm leaving. And we will meet again and tomorrow, next week, whatever. So what I mean is it's about self. That is something that people really understand. It's not about the bullybles. It's about you and the
Right.
way you respect yourself. And then I try to build upon that. So not to bring the bullyable is to say, okay, what did you do to respect yourself?
Uh-huh.
And there are many ways to approach this based on personality. No?
Right.
So,
Right.
so it's not about that you will attack back, and
Right.
become also aggressive because most people cannot do it, and it's correct.
Well,
But you
it's
can say,
dangerous as well.
and it could be danger as well. But this is say, listen, this is the limit. I mean, I don't feel okay in this conversation. Let's talk another moment.
Yeah. So let me grab that. So what I hear you saying is there's like a perspective shift here away from focusing on the bully boss and their behavior and focusing on the impact on me and having that drive my self-respect. So how am I
Absolutely.
going to have my own back here? So I love this idea this of setting a boundary because I think when people hear boundary and bully boss, they think, hell no, that's like, no, I'm not gonna, that's career limiting. But what I hear you saying is, and I think this is something I've seen many times in experience, so I trust it. So that when I stay on my side of the net and I'm talking about now is not the right time for me, I'm making it about
Exactly.
me.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna, and I think for people listening, like I recognize that this is sketchy, right? Like I don't want to set people up to go out there and do something that's going to traumatize them. But by the same token, by having our own back in that situation, having that, excuse me, that boundary, I don't feel okay in this moment. You're probably not going to get your bully boss jumping up and down for joy. They are probably going to challenge. But what I hear you saying that I think is definitely something for people to look into is that it's the repetition. It's that
Exactly.
there's the respect comes when you continue to hold the line. And I think the problem that also happens, which I think you said, Carlos, is that if the first time I set the boundary, then I get the challenge and I let it go, that almost reinforces the bully behavior. Is that
Exactly.
accurate?
Yep.
Yeah.
The first time, yes, but
Yeah.
you said something also very well, many important things you said today. But you said I will not do something like this that can be career limiting. So to limit
Career
my
limiting.
career.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't do it, you're doing career limiting.
Okay. Okay. This is one of those moments. Pump the brakes. Let's grab that. That's so important, Carlos, because it's so common in organizational parlance to say, "I can't do that, it's career limiting." So I am now going to lift that from you and I am going to say, well, actually, not doing it is career limiting. It's such an obvious
Exactly.
next little jump. Thank you. I'm putting that in my bag.
Exactly.
That is awesome. Listen, as much as I would love this conversation to continue, I know that time is of the essence and it has been, a valuable conversation so far, but I also want to be respectful because I know if I manage time well, the likelihood that when I ping you again for another part two, because I have all these other great questions I didn't get to, that you're more likely
Sure.
to say yes. So I want to,
Absolutely.
set the container. So, Carlos, just like last words for you, anything that I haven't talked about or said? Obviously, I don't want you to get into a whole new diatribe, but just any other sort of last comments before we sign off?
I love your questions. That's what I want to say. And already in front of everyone, I say I already accept to come again and to talk to you again.
Woohoo! Okay, you
I,
heard it here.
I
Me
would love
too.
to. I would love
Yeah,
to. I would love
yeah.
to, Chris.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so Carlos, thanks so much. For anybody listening, all of the information that you can reach out to Carlos through his website. I'll put everything on the show notes. Definitely check out his TEDx talk, and there's lots of other podcasts that he has been interviewed on. That helped me a lot with my research for this one. So, Carlos, it was like a super big pleasure. I feel like we're both kind of leading from the heart in this conversation.
Definitely.
It feels really at home. I hope it felt at home for you
Me
too.
too. Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot. Really, I felt great.
good.
We did manage the energy very well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And so Carlos is in Madrid, so I'm going to say to him, go have a sangria for me, please.
I will. I promise. Promise. It's a
Awesome.
deal.
That's so great. So, you've been listening to The Squeeze. Thanks for joining us today. If you want to continue tuning in, don't forget to click subscribe. And as always, we want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your feedback, and challenges if there's anything you don't agree with. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.